Hello, all you food safety enthusiasts. My name is Jim Albright, and I'm excited to be with you today for a special FSMA Friday. You know why? Because we are going to be learning from a super expert in the field of food safety who's going to share his thoughts on what verification process issues you might need to look out for and what you should be doing to make sure that both your facility and hygiene safety programs are up to par with those internal and external audits. But before we begin, I know we're joined by some newcomers to the series, so welcome everybody. As just a quick overview, FSMA Friday is a monthly series for all of those within the food supply chain to get regular updates, insights, and guidance around the changes within the Food Safety Modernization Act. And it's brought to you by Safety Chain and the Acheson Group to share some new methodologies and tools to help you stay on top of those FSMA requirements direct from the experts over at the Acheson Group. Now, this is also a great forum for you to get some of your food safety questions answered, so be sure to look out for that question panel to insert your questions anytime during the course of the presentation. All right, just a few other housekeeping items here. We've muted all attending mics, but absolutely, you have room at the end for your questions to get answered by our speaker today. So please, again, put your questions in the question panel, and we'll do our best to get through them all. Now, if we do happen to run out of time today, we will absolutely get back to you with your answer. Don't worry. And of course, this presentation is being recorded, and everybody on this call will get a recording link and the slides. So look out for that later in your inbox. All right, I am very excited to have with us today Rich Simmons, who has over 40 years experience in the food safety world. Now, as you can see, Rich has completed over 500 audits from SQF to BRC and was, prior to joining TAG, as the Senior Advisor for Food Safety, responsible for certification body management of FSSC, SQF, BRC, and other GFSI standards at NSF International. So Rich, it is really great to have you on with us for this very special FSMA Friday. How are you today?
I'm great, thanks. Glad to be here.
All right, now I know you've cooked up some of the more recent FSMA updates to share with us, so why don't we dive into that?
Okay, thanks, Jim. Okay, so the most recent updates I have to share for this is the FDA has released new menu labeling guidance. This guidance document addresses stakeholder questions regarding the implementation of nutritional labeling for foods sold in covered establishments. There's a link there, so if you're interested in that information, you can click on that and go to the information provided. The second update is about the salmonella outbreak with cantaloupe. The last recall announcement was December 6th, so keep your finger crossed that there's no further damage on that one. The first recall was the 9th of November. There's no doubt the traceability rule will help with the problems that we had with the cantaloupes in this particular case. It's also interesting to note that the Salmonella serotype Sundsvall appears to have a high hospitalization rate in Canada. So there's a relationship between what was going on in Canada, and that was mostly children, and what the recalls in the US. Okay, so I'm going to talk about verification. And I have 4 definitions here, and I'm very boringly going to read them. The first one is from the actual dictionary. Verification is an act of, or process of verifying a sworn statement of truth or correction. The BRCGS model is the application methods, procedures. I'm just going to close the little box here. Jimmy, still there?
Oh yeah.
Could you bring that back up?
The slide is actually being displayed, so I think your screen may have.
I don't see it here anymore. Okay, I got it. Great. All right, the BRCGS verification definition is the application methods, procedures, and tests and other evaluations in monitoring to determine whether a control or measure has been completed as intended. The SQF definition, those activities other than monitoring that determine the validity of the food safety or quality plan and ensure that the system is operating according to the plan. And the FDA definition is verification is defined as those activities other than monitoring that determine if the hazard plan is operating as intended and the control measures are scientifically valid for producing a safe product. So on the next slide, are some existing tasks for verification. So we'll just go through these. Annual review of changes, that's a very normal one. Definitely an expectation that you will verify there's been no changes in your system. And if there are, then to verify what has been done to bring it in line with your current food safety programs. Internal audit, custom complaint data trending, pest control summaries, preventive maintenance completion rates, product hold summaries, master sanitation schedule summaries, training matrices, calibration schedule, food safety plan review. So how I'm going to start this is by basically stating that, you know, for me, there's two kinds of verification. There's the verification of a task where a person other than the person completing the task goes in, looks at the information on a record, perhaps watches that person perform his duties for that task, and will sign off on it. That's normally a daily verification. So what this particular topic is about is more the annual verification, or the verification that programs are being completed effectively. And all of the standards do require that an effectiveness document be put into place to show that you're doing this. So what the intent of what I'm going to talk about is how we can use the monthly inspection, which is a normally expected inspection of your facilities, how we can use that document to track verification. So the objective of this session is to look at the list of components and build parts into the monthly inspection program. So we're going to look at the prerequisite programs and say, how can we build this in? So we're going to look specifically at some I've chosen, and that will be the monthly verification for calibration, for pest control, shipping and receiving, sanitation, plant security, and the food safety plan. Of course, the food safety plan is not a prerequisite program, but I thought that it should go in anyway. So this is a tool, and a tool that I've used over a number of years, and I find to be very effective. And I'll bring this up at the end of the webinar as well. But what I've found is that it takes away a task, a major task of, at the end of the year, having to go out there and try and do this from scratch. So we're going to get into this. We're going to start with the program of calibration. So on your screens, you should see an excerpt from the monthly inspection checklist. Of course, I've just taken pieces of a checklist to demonstrate this. So you're going through, doing your monthly inspection, and you come across one on calibration, and that is equipment impacting food safety, quality, regulatory is routinely or annually calibrated to a schedule. Calibration of this equipment is current. So that's the piece in the monthly inspection. And so I've only got a part of the inspection here, but it says conforms yes or no. Hopefully it's yes. And if it's no, you would put a classification of nonconformity, minor, major, critical. And the objective evidence box is a very important one. So in order to determine this, what did you look at to determine that? So just to summarize what this does for you and what you're going to do, you're going to check, is the equipment being scheduled? You're going to check the schedule to make sure it's adhered to. So if you have scales that are being scheduled for the month of March, and you're into the March inspection. You want to make sure that's being done and it's being scheduled, that the contractor firm that specializes in platform scales or lab scales are coming on site to do it, or it's being done. Make sure the records are in place. At the end of 12 months of doing this, you have determined the effectiveness of the calibration prerequisite program because you've looked at the records, you've looked at the schedule, you've verified everything. And the beauty of this, of course, is when you, if you're in an audit, you can show this information to show that you've done an effectiveness task to show your prerequisite program for calibration is effective. You can snippet this right out and put it into your meetings that you have with management, which would normally be monthly or quarterly, and you can show that you've last 11 months of looking at calibration, schedules being adhered to, the contractors have come, everything's in place, and that this is an effective program. So it's a great way to keep up on that part of the business as well. Okay, so next topic we're going to move to on the monthly inspection is pest control. So there's two pieces here. The first one is live catch devices and glue boards are checked at least monthly. Exterior base stations are checked at least monthly. PCO must sign and date and label all devices. So in this particular case, you're going to make sure that your contractor, if it's a contractor that does your pest control, is out there and they are looking at it. So you might want to do a sampling of your pest devices. You want to make sure that the number on the device matches the number on the wall. And so you're checking the map. The second, I see that the second one is the same as the first one, but there would also be a check on records to make sure that the records are complete, that all our devices are captured, and that it's signed off, and that any recommendations made by the pest control contractor have been forwarded to the maintenance department or have been looked after so that they're on a schedule to be fixed. So the verification rationale here is that along with trending charts for pests, which is another part of the verification, this verification can show that there are no issues by month, that records are in place and they're signed, the contracted service has effectively completed device inspection. Okay, so again, so month by month, you're catching that verification, and again over a period of 11 or 12 months. You have a full year of having checked it and it's good. That takes that whole year-end task away from you. Next prerequisite program we're looking at is receiving and shipping. And the excerpt from the monthly inspection is number one, all raw materials, ingredients, including allergens, are properly identified and labeled. So that would include a site inspection, a storage inspection. You know, look at what's going on in processing as well. Number two, products are maintained in an appropriate temperature range. So now we're going to cold chain management. You want to make sure that those that are in charge of those areas are monitoring the temperature. If you have graphs on like electronic temperature gauges, you're going to check those. You may want to ask someone of their awareness of checking, making sure. You want to look at records. And the last one is receiving areas are clean, organized, and free of debris and spilled products. So there's three elements here, and you're going to look at every month. And at the end of this, you pretty well have an idea that that this is under control. There may be other parts and pieces that you can add to this part of the inspection as well to broaden it to your own needs. So the verification rationale here is you're checking compliance with the shipping and receiving team who are responsible for the elements of food safety in those areas. At the end of the year, you can summarize the number of infractions or level of compliance to show effective control. That gives really good feedback to your shipping receiving manager, as well as the senior management team on how that part of the plant is operated. from a food safety perspective. Okay, the next one is the sanitation program. So I've kept this one simple. You could obviously build this out to have many more fields in it. So the first part, again, is in-plant inspection. You're going to look at the whole plant area. Every piece, you're going to look for cleanliness maintained, is being maintained, and you're going to collect elements that aren't. The monthly inspection actually is a real focus for doing this anyway. So there'll be other elements in your monthly inspection for each area to make sure it's being cleaned. But this one is like an overreaching one that might address the whole plant area at all. Okay, the second part of this sanitation document is complete. And for example, according to master sanitation schedule, the SSOP is up to date, it's current, they're using the right one, people understand it. Check sheets are being completed and signed, there's no gaps. So that's part of that whole element of verifying that kind of documentation. That presumably would be also verified by the sanitation team. So you're just checking the checker in this particular case, but again, it gives you that whole idea of if this Prerequisite program is in control. Again, the verification rationale, check for facility sanitation conditions and the completion of the sanitation schedule, SSOP compliance, and records and record keeping for the month. You're going to correlate over the year to show sufficient proof of the state of cleanliness of the program compliance. Again, you're looking at the whole plant in one element, even though that the monthly inspection is going to look at the different areas. And it's, again, something that you can take out and you can build out and show your management team how this program is being effective, feedback to the sanitation team, and it's in place for any audits you might have. Okay, the next Prerequisite program we're going to look at is plant security. In this case, we have 3 elements that we're going to look at. The first one is your visitor sign-in place to make sure that it's being used properly and that the sign-in includes a review of the GMPs and food defense rules. Those are really important. In this particular case, you may want to talk to the people at reception who are responsible for keeping this document to ensure that they are making sure that all people are using it and that they are actually reading the rules. So it's a really good litmus test on that, people coming into the plant during working hours. The second part here, all trucks delivered have a set level of security, whether it's locked or sealed, and that the trucks are not parked unsupervised. So you're looking at, again, on-site visual inspection of trucks and compliance levels for that. And if there are trucks that are unlocked or unsupervised, then it may be a problem that needs to be addressed with your security people. The third piece of this, doors are in good condition. There are no damages. Door hardware, latch and lock are in good working condition. Doors to the exterior are kept closed or locked. So you're looking at the building security. You're looking at what personnel are doing, how are they entering and leaving, and are those doors always locked, with the exception of the doors that have been designated for public entry. Okay. Again, looking at the rationale, the checks of the visitor log and discussion with plant employee team who look after this show compliance. You want to make sure all contractors are trained with no shortcuts. You want to make sure that if X company has an employee that comes all the time, and then suddenly another employee from that company comes, that they are actually reading that and that they understand they understand the rules of the plant. Okay, you gotta look at inbound and outbound load security to make sure it's confirmed. and the discipline of keeping doors in good condition and closed and locked is confirmed. All right, so and you're looking at in many ways the employee discipline on doors, but also you're looking at employee discipline on all of this, because your contractors should be supervised, they should know the rules, and people should always be aware of what they're doing. And the same thing with trucks as they're coming in, your receiving team should know to check for seals or locks, as well as the team that's for dispatch. Okay, the last one of these we're going to look at is food safety. Again, this is not a prerequisite program, but it's just something that can be used for food safety as well as the prerequisite program. You want to check that CCP records are completed on time, are legible, complete, signed off, and verified by QA if that's how you're verifying your documentation, or by a supervisor. You want to look for gaps because people make mistakes, and if there's gaps, it's really important to address those gaps. Okay, the second part of this, CCP operators, you're going to interview them, found they're knowledgeable on procedures, they're responsible for. It's another oversight on their understanding of what they're measuring. They know both critical and operating limits and knew what to do when a failure is found. So by critical and operating limits, if you're working to an operating limit that is a buffer to your critical limit, they understand what that is, but they understand that there is a critical limit that where food safety could be compromised if you go above or below it, depending on what it is. Okay, so verification check is performed on the monitoring, deviation control, and record keeping components of the food safety plan. This confirms that the most critical aspects of the food safety system are effective. Okay, so we're going to conclude this talk right now. I'm just going to go through this again. The concept of using the monthly inspection as a verification tool is so that the group that's responsible for verification does not have to do a separate verification task. It allows them to have data that can be shared with management. It allows documented data that can be shared with auditors. It can flow right into the internal audit, so that when the internal audit's looking at some of these prerequisite programs, you have that information to share, easy, simple, and it also gives you a more of a real-time look at the overall effectiveness of these programs. So let's read off these bullet points. It provides a robust verification calendar. It provides verification data that can easily be lifted from the inspection worksheets and transferred to a verification record. It makes it easier to provide data to the management team for monthly updates or quarterly updates, or even be used in the annual verification of your food safety management system. You can combine tasks so that verification and QA inspections are completed simultaneously. It could ease the burden of internal audit of the food safety system. I mean, the internal audit is not a big undertaking anyway, but anything you can do to say that we have this information right here, make it easy to go and get, easy to show that you have looked at this on a monthly basis. It makes it very easy to fill that part, to audit out. And it provides good data to share with regulators or third-party auditors in a manner that is ready to show. So I think that's all I have on this talk. So any questions, I'll hand it over to Jim to.
All right. Yeah, thanks, Rich. There's actually a lot of stuff you covered here, and I know there's probably some details that we can dive deeper into, but overall, I think you made a really good point at the start where you said there's two types of verification. There's the daily type, and then this what you just described is more of the monthly type, which rolls all of that daily activity into sort of this monthly view that gives you that nice pulse about the health of what's going on in your food safety programs. The other thing that kind of caught my attention, and obviously I'm not the expert here like you are and everybody on this call, but this involves people outside of the FSQA function, right? You've got maintenance, you've got and, the people in the loading dock need to be aware of some of these checks that are happening and understand them, like you said, and obviously have contractors who are also supporting your plant operations to also understand what's being reviewed and checked. So it's a really cool tool. And I guess my question to you is, for you to come up with something like this kind of tells me that in your experience, as you've had hundreds of audits behind you, and you're still working with many manufacturers, this is a struggle where at the end of the month, quarter, year, whatever, it is a struggle to come up with that visibility to what's been going on.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I will add that any companies that are just coming together and putting their new food safety management system in place is very intimidating and overwhelming to put all of the requirements of a food safety plan together, to get checklists together. And then before, just as you just started, you have to evaluate it. So this allows for some self-evaluation as you're completing it. So it's really, really useful for newer companies, but also any company that these tasks have to be done. They're being questioned by auditors and by regulators as to how do you know that you have an effective program. And this just allows you a way to create data that shows that you are looking at it and that you have it.
Right. Yeah, and that to me was a very critical component, because again, when an auditor walks into your door, you need to be ready and have something to share with them. Well, you get all of your data in order and all of your reporting in order. So one thing that also struck me was there's this under the plant security, you included review of GMPs, including food defense rules. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Well, yes, and this, I mean, that particular comment comes from my years of experience, where you're doing an audit and you're going into the far reaches of the facility, and they have a contractor there who props doors open so they can get in and out without having to go through the front door, things like that. So these people need to know those rules, that they can't do that. They need to know that there are security rules for reasons, and that they have to adhere to, and they're signing off on it. So once they sign off, they usually aren't going to go against those rules.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then similarly, under the shipping and receiving topic, you had mentioned raw materials and ingredients need to be properly identified, which obviously reminds you of the food traceability rule. Is this generally an area that you find to be, I mean, again, I was kind of surprised. Oh yeah, shipping and receiving, that makes sense. But
Yes.
usually that task is on the FSQA person.
It is, but the first people to see the product are the receivers.
Yeah.
And I mean, part of their job is to make sure that is to check the paperwork, to check the load, to check the incoming materials, and they have to check that there's lot coding on that product. That's even before the FSQA people are become involved.
Yeah, and just going back to the primary user of this tool, is it kind of up to the plant manager, or is this just something that gets shared to each department? I guess who's responsible? Who's the owner of this tool?
Well, that depends, because it depends on the structure of the company and how everyone interacts with it. I've seen in cases where the monthly inspection is done by a plant manager. And plant managers tend to be very busy. They got a lot of things on the go, so they can't always do this. But when they do, they have a really good feel for the programs that they're auditing. So most of the time, the monthly inspection can be done by maintenance personnel, can be done by production personnel, or can be done by QA.
Okay.
And so it doesn't really matter. It can be structured either way to work so that you can get this data.
Now, when you excuse me, when you go back to your point earlier on, where it's kind of a daily verification. So, when you're talking about the food safety, CCP records are completed and signed off on. That is a daily occurrence. But
Yes.
in order to track it on a tool like this, you need to be sure that every single day of the month that particular verification had occurred, and you can
Mhm.
effectively sign off on this tool to share with upper management and so whoever needs to see it. So
Yeah.
again, this is an assumption of mine, but is in your experience, has there been a issue in terms of tracking that daily verification for some of these programs, including the one I just mentioned?
I find that most of your critical control point information is probably extremely well controlled. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to make sure at a higher level, at a 25,000-foot level, that there's no gaps in the program,
Yeah.
that there isn't a day that someone didn't show up and therefore it didn't get done. So you're looking at it more holistically than you are on a day-to-day basis. The expectation is it's done every day,
Hmm.
and it's being verified every day. But in my experience, there's gaps here and there that you can find, and it's better for personnel in the plant to find it than it to be found by a regulator or by a third-party auditor.
And sorry, maybe this is going way into too much detail, but going back to that food safety example where you say, oh yeah, your operators are knowledgeable on critical limits, and you're able to monitor deviations and things like that. That that could be sort of a interpretation. How I guess you need a way to verify that or test that your operators are in fact knowledgeable on these things. So uh, in order for you to check yes on that tool,
Mhm.
there needs to be other, I guess, systems or mechanisms in place to make sure that yes, they have verified through some type of test or some other approval that they understand these types of things like critical limits.
Yes. So, I mean, they're doing the job every day, every hour, maybe.
Yeah, yeah,
So they know what they're doing from that point of view. But do they understand what they're looking for? I mean, operators don't necessarily have to know everything. They have to
right.
know the basics of what they're looking for. If it's a temperature measurement and a time, then they need to know the basics of that temperature measure and time. They have to know when it's not acceptable, and they have to know what to do when they find it's not acceptable, and who they have to call, and so on. So it's just a matter of confirming that information on the real critical information that an operator needs to know to perform his CCP check.
Right. Yeah, and you brought this up a few times, but this tool, at least in your experience, has helped kind of ease a lot of headaches at the end of the month or quarter, year.
Mhm.
And again, it's all about visibility. It's making sure that everybody's sort of on par and keeping in line with a lot of these different changing regulations. And even, earlier we were just talking about this, but every manufacturer is dynamic. You could be adding a new line, you could be trying to get another certification, right? There's a new regulation that's coming down or getting updated, and you
Mhm.
have to make sure that you understand all of the different uh, changes going on so that you can inform and communicate and train properly everybody that needs to understand that and obviously abide by some of those rules. Um, so I'm just gonna open it up. Anybody that has a question, please put it into the question panel. But while we wait for more questions, Rich, is there maybe a example that you can share where you walked into a plant and some of the folks that you were talking to were just kind of maybe challenged with some of that visibility? Maybe it took them a little bit longer to get ready for an audit, or maybe their management didn't have a clear understanding of what was really going on. And you introduced this tool and you worked with them, and obviously there were hopefully some good results that followed.
Yeah, I'll just bring up one example. This was in a fish plant I visited a number of years ago, where I routinely, as an auditor, I was doing a BRCGS audit at the time, and I routinely will ask the auditor questions. Well, or not the auditor, but the operator questions. And in this particular case, the operator was very stressed, which is a normal reaction when an auditor comes up to talk to you. So I asked him about what he does. Tried to kind of break a little few ice-breaking type questions to make him a little bit more comfortable.
Right.
Clearly, he was not comfortable. And so when I asked him about the critical limits, he didn't know what I was talking about.
Mm,
Well, I knew he knew what the critical limits were. So what to me, when at the end of that exercise where he just didn't know what to say and he was a mess. I went to the management team and said that, this isn't a disaster. I said, I can tell that he knows what he's doing, but you're not talking to him enough yourselves. You're
mm,
not going there and asking him the questions that I ask. And one of the things that really helps in this process is if you say, okay, you're responsible for this. Here's, we've gone through the training. Tell me what you're doing at the plant level. And then if you do that a few times and then the auditor comes in, by then they're used to that question and then they can answer it without getting into a very stressful situation.
right. Wow, that makes a lot of sense. Poor guy. Well, I
Yeah,
hope he felt
yeah,
better.
he was a mess.
Oh, that's all right. Well, thanks for sharing that,
I
Rich.
had to break it off after a while because he just knew that his stress levels had broken the barrier.
Yeah, he needed to take 5 for a little bit and just relax,
Mhm.
do some breathing
Yeah,
exercises.
yeah.
All right, Rich, I think the next step for everybody on this call might be to review the slides. We're going to send the slides out and the recording of this presentation, and give Tag a call. Give Rich a call. I'll include his email address as well. You can reach out and ask some questions around how this type of tool might be able to help you in your facility. And as always, the Acheson Group are the experts in food safety. They deal with food safety regulations all the time, and they understand this stuff better than probably most people. So please do check them out at theachesongroup.com. And if you're curious about some other food safety guides and resources, Safety Chain has them. You go to their resources page, go to the downloads, and you're going to find a ton of information that you can use. Actually, that can help you take action today in terms of boosting your food safety program. So please do check that out at safetychain.com. All right, with that, I'm going to wish everybody a very wonderful holiday season. I appreciate y'all coming on to the special FSMA Friday this month, and we're looking forward to the new year's. And everybody just be well, and we'll see you next time on FSMA Friday.